Hello, this is Rachel Pereira, and this is my American culture reaction video to the article Body Ritual Among Nasarima by Horace Minor. And my first initial reaction to the article was that Horace Minor was not really making fun of America, but he was writing as an outside perspective of American culture to someone who maybe didn't understand American culture. And it made American culture seem very self absorbed, materialistic, and like they were willing to do anything it took, even if it took body mutilization to get the look that they wanted to be perceived a certain way by other people. And it made me think that because when you go out reading throughout the article, the first thing that it talks about is how these Nasarima people had all these objects in their home and how they kept a lot of objects in their home and how they had a bunch of shrines and things like that, and how rich people kept a lot of objects in their home and poor people kept a lot of things in their home too, but they didn't have as much, but they kept a lot so that way, I guess, so they felt like they had more, and so that way people perceived them as having more than what they really did. And it also talked about how they had magic potions that they got from the doctor, and they would go to the doctor to try to remain healthy, and these doctors would write prescriptions that these people couldn't even read, so like witchcraft, prescriptions and things like that. And so it made the American people seem crazy because they're getting these prescriptions from these magic doctors that they don't even know what's in it, and they're paying all this money to remain healthy, but yet, they're not any more healthy than anybody else. And it made me think that's what he was talking about, is that people are giving all their money to these magic doctors for nothing. And they went to these magic teeth doctors who get their teeth pulled out if they had holes in them, if they were decaying, so that way they could keep the look and keep looking healthy and keep having healthy teeth and keep the look so that way people would like them. And that these men would use these sharp objects on their face, I guess, to groom their face and shave their face. And only men could use them. And so I guess they were really sharp. And so they were like, why are you using this crazy sharp stuff? And women would use hot irons on their head, I guess, to remain looking beautiful and keep their hair looking a certain way. Because Horace Minor did write this in the 1950s, and I think they cared a lot about outward appearance. Um, I don't know, maybe just as much as today. It's kind of crazy. He wrote this back in 1950, and it's 2023, and American culture still cares so much about what they look like and what they do, and will pay so much money to look a certain way, and pay for Botox and pay for these BBLs to keep their body looking a certain way. And I think social media in American culture has such great influence on that. And I think a lot of people care about what other people think. And I guess it's just sad because a lot of people are so inwardly focused instead of being outwardly focused and caring about what's going on in the world. We're so distracted by what we look like and what people think of us. And so it made me think of American culture and kind of like how we twist things to mean something else, and all these narratives that come from social media and all this influence that social media has on American culture. But for me, it personally made me think of something that I celebrate and something that we celebrate in American culture, and that's Thanksgiving. And I think a lot of people in different cultures don't really celebrate Thanksgiving because the true meaning of Thanksgiving is giving thanks to God. And the story behind that, I feel like, has been so twisted by different people in American culture and maybe outside of American culture. And a lot of people may not understand why we celebrate Thanksgiving, but this is why I thought it was so important for me to talk about and something that I can relate to. And so from ChristianAnswers.net, I read the story on Thanksgiving because it's been so long since we've learned about it in school. And I think they give a different story in school too. But when I was reading on Christian.net, it talked about how the Pilgrims originally came from Holland, and they were part of a Christian community, and they were very high Christian, and they cared about, preaching the word and just keeping their family in church and keeping those Christian values. And while this Pilgrim family was in Holland, they I think the Holland people just started doing their own thing, and became less Christian valued, and that Holland family didn't really like that or want that for the generation and their kids after them. So then they decided to get on the Mayflower and migrate. Their original plan was to go to Manhattan, but then while they were on the Mayflower, I guess the wind changed them to a different destination. They didn't really know where they were going to end up because the weather got crazy, and then they landed in Massachusetts. And when they got to Massachusetts, it was originally an island where, or a place where not pilgrims, it was a place where the Native Americans stayed. But by the time the pilgrims got there, all the Indians were gone. But they still had their corn that they harvested in fresh water. And so then the pilgrims were very thankful. And they were like, okay, well, then I guess this is where God landed us. And we're going to start our Christian community and keep this corn and have food to eat and water to drink. And then all of a sudden, there was one Indian left that had came back, and his name was Squanto. And I guess he was somewhere else, and then he came back, and it turns out Squanto spoke English, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool! Like you speak English too." And Squanto also turned out to be Christian, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, like we made a new friend." So then the English people and Squanto became friends, and Squanto taught the English people how to plant seeds and build a harvest of their own because they didn't know how to do that. They were like, "Where did this corn come from?" So then Squanto taught them how to do that, and they waited for the harvest. And when the harvest planted, they started a tradition called Thanksgiving, to where they sat down, ate corn, fish, deer, and turkey, and that's why we eat turkey today. It's because the tradition that started back in 1677, and the whole reason why they did that was to give thanks to God for the harvest that they planted, because they couldn't do that without God, because God is their ultimate creator. And so I think that's very important for American culture, that we just get educated and learn about the original story of Thanksgiving. And it's been changed over generations, and we celebrate it a little bit differently. And we forget to be thankful for what we have and thankful for what's around us, and be less self centered and less self absorbed, and really just be thankful for our family. And we don't need all the materialistic items because we're not going to take that to heaven with us. And I think that's what Horace Minor was touching on, was that American culture has become so self-absorbed. And I thought it was a really good article. And I think that this new story of Thanksgiving helps me just be more thankful in every holiday season and really just give thanks to God. And I think other people in different cultures may not understand that, but in American culture, I think it's really big for us, and we can just learn to be more thankful.